Well, it's exciting times for people who believe in the power of entrepreneurship and self-employment, especially for American disadvantaged youth. Polls indicate that something like 70% of teenagers can imagine themselves being an entrepreneur at some point in their lives, and the idea of self-employment is very attractive to them, according to these surveys. It's also an exciting times in terms of programs. We have a proliferation of programs. Some are school-based, where there's courses on entrepreneurship. Some are community-based, after school and in the non-school hours. Some are internet-based. Some are mentoring programs, which bring in business leaders to the programs that are teaching entrepreneurship. And some are teacher training programs that are training teachers to teach young people how to run businesses, because the teachers themselves often don't have those skills. When we study the dropout rate, we find that one of the largest explanations for why young people drop out is in answer to the survey question that they just don't like school. Well, what does this all have to do with entrepreneurship? Entrepreneurship, the research shows, begins to engage kids in learning. They begin to understand what skills they have and what skills they don't have. So, for example, in an entrepreneurship project, I'm doing a return on investment calculation, and I have to use a spreadsheet. I might realize quickly that I don't have the skills to use an Excel spreadsheet. I might have to brush up on my mathematical skills. I'm going to write a business plan. I might have to brush up on my narrative skills, my ability to write a coherent paragraph. So entrepreneurship connects kids to learning, and it's learning by doing. We have particular challenges with providing access to youth entrepreneurship opportunities for disadvantaged and minority groups. We can take the situation of girls, for example. Girls in some surveys that we've done express less interest in entrepreneurship than the males. And when we look at the number of firms in the United States that are owned by women, it's way lower than their proportion in the population. It's something like 28%. So as we think about access to youth entrepreneurship opportunities, we want to think about improving access for young girls so we can bring that figure up higher in the long run and have more women-owned firms. Hispanics is another group that we could talk about with respect to entrepreneurship programs. Anyone who's visited a Latino community in the United States sees enormous vitality and enormous activity in the small business arena. We need to connect the young Hispanics coming up to entrepreneurship training so that they can participate in their own communities and continue this tradition of self-employment. 40% of dropouts in the United States are from Latino and Hispanic backgrounds, so we must kind of reclaim them. And entrepreneurship, while not a magic solution, can go a long way to turning kids on to learning. So these special groups need access to entrepreneurship, and we have to think of more community-based and school-based solutions to connecting them. They're actually creating a business plan. They're actually going out and buying supplies. They're actually developing a product, and they're trying to sell that product. So from an individual point of view, this is transformative. Think of that and compare it to the traditional pedagogy, the traditional education. Answering questions, raising your hand in a classroom, a lack of liveliness, often a lack of peer group excitement. This is a totally different kind of education, and from an individual point of view, it can literally be transformative. I think entrepreneurship training helps move people away from Walter Mitty dreams that are unrealistic, to become a fabulous millionaire by the time you're 16 years old and the like, and they help focus young people on what are realistic goals and what are practical kinds of outcomes that really might be achieved depending upon their effort and their skill. And of course the factor of luck factors into this as well. I think one of the interesting things in some research that we did was we found a small percentage of young people after entrepreneurship training decided that being an entrepreneur wasn't for them at all. They began to see how risky this is. They began to see that they would like more, perhaps, security in a conventional job. They just came to understand what the requirements are of being an entrepreneur, and what's involved, and they bailed out. And at first we saw that result and we were trying to understand what it meant. But when we dug deeper, we found that they got a realistic appraisal from the program of what it means to be an entrepreneur, and a small percentage of them said, I think I'll put my sights somewhere else.